One show made kids cry, taught them about grief, infertility, and failure, and somehow still got a G rating. The other one taught kids to call their dad fat and hang up on their best friend mid-conversation. Both of them are children's cartoons. Both of them are wildly successful, and for years, parents have been fighting about which one is actually smarter. Today, we're settling it. For good. Back in 2018, a little animated blue dog from Brisbane quietly showed up on Australian TV and did something almost no kid show had ever done before. It made parents cry harder than the children watching it. Meanwhile, a pink pig from England had already been ruling children's television for over a decade, inspiring theme parks, billion-dollar merchandise deals, and approximately 6 million children across the world to suddenly develop a British accent for no reason. Bluey and Peppa Pig, two of the most watched children's cartoons on the planet, both about animal families, both technically made for kids under 7. But here's the thing, they couldn't be more different if they tried. And when you actually sit down and look at what these two shows are doing under the hood, but that's only the beginning. Because what this comparison actually reveals is one of the most fascinating accidental experiments in children's media ever made. Two shows aimed at the exact same audience, made around the same time, doing almost the exact opposite of each other, and the results tell you everything about what smart children's TV actually looks like. So today, let's have a look at what really happens when you put Bluey and Peppa Pig side by side and ask the question nobody wants to answer honestly. Which one is actually smarter? The origin stories, one was built with purpose. One was built with borrowed money. Peppa Pig was born in the year 2000 when two British animators named Neville Astley and Mark Baker were, and this is the technical term, broke. They had no jobs, no money, and had to borrow cash from friends and family just to develop the concept. They brought in a producer named Phil Davies. The three of them formed a company called Astley Baker Davies, and they put together the show on a shoestring budget. The BBC passed on it. Channel 5 took a chance on it instead. The first episode aired in May 2004, and within months, it was a genuine hit. Now here's the funny thing about how they designed Peppa. They made a very deliberate, creative decision. They understood that children don't enjoy laughing at themselves, but they absolutely love laughing at their parents. So they built the show around making the adults look silly. Daddy Pig specifically was constructed to be the butt of every joke, bumbling, overweight, useless, and wrong about nearly everything. The creators thought this was harmless fun. Spoiler, some parents disagreed. Bluey, on the other hand, was created in 2016 by a man named Joe Brumm, who had worked on Charlie and Lola and knew exactly what he was building. Here's the thing that almost nobody knows. Joe Brumm has publicly said that Peppa Pig was one of his inspirations. He told The Guardian, and these are his words, that he loved how Australian it felt in the sense that it was distinctly local and that he wanted to do the same thing for Australia. Except he took that inspiration and then flipped almost every creative decision Peppa made. Where Peppa made the dad the fool, Bluey made the dad the hero. Where Peppa made humor come from embarrassing the parents, Bluey made humor come from the parents genuinely joining in on the chaos. And where Peppa was a show built around simple entertainment, Bluey was built around a very specific philosophy that imaginative play is how children develop emotionally, and that television could either support that or undermine it. The whole show flows almost entirely from Joe Brumm's mind alone. He writes, produces, and directs the episodes himself. And his guiding principle, the thing he has repeated in every interview, is that he never wants to over-moralize. He doesn't want to lecture kids. He just wants to show them a family navigating the world with love and honesty and a little bit of chaos, and trust that children will absorb the lesson without being beaten over the head with it. One show was made because two guys needed money. The other was made because one guy had a philosophy. Both became global hits, but one of them got there with a very clear idea of what it was trying to do. The science researchers actually studied this, and the results are uncomfortable for Peppa hearers. In 2025, a team of researchers sat down and watched every single episode of Bluey from seasons 1 through 3. 150 episodes, 18 hours of a cartoon dog family. They used something called the Grotberg Resilience Framework, a proper academic tool for measuring emotional development, and they went through every storyline, every character interaction, every moment a character faced a problem and had to figure out how to deal with it. Their finding? Nearly half of all Bluey episodes contain clear messages about resilience. Not accidental resilience, not background resilience. Front and center, watch this. Here's how you cope with a hard thing: resilience. And then there's the other side of the research. Northeastern University experts were asked about Peppa Pig in 2024, and what they found was interesting. The show's appeal, they said, is actually about believability. Peppa acts like a real child. She's rude, she's selfish, she hangs up on friends, she makes fun of her dad. She is sometimes a genuinely mean older sibling to George. And kids recognize that behavior because they see it in themselves. But here's the problem. Peppa does all of this, and nobody stops her. The behavior almost never gets corrected on screen. One expert put it simply: Peppa acts the way any child might act, but she's never taught that it's unkind. So what happens? Parents started reporting that their children were coming home from kindergarten and acting exactly like Peppa. The parents, this is where it gets actually uncomfortable. Daddy Pig. Let's give him his moment. Daddy Pig is consistently portrayed as overweight, lazy, clumsy, overconfident, and wrong. The show regularly makes his size the punchline. In one episode, Peppa creates a treehouse club, and the password said out loud, repeated, treated as funny, is Daddy's fat tummy. This is a children's show for 4-year-olds. And the lesson is that mocking your father's body is a cute and acceptable thing to do. But then there's Bandit. Bandit Healer might be the most revolutionary character in the history of children's television, and that is not an exaggeration. He is a father who is completely present, not in a cheesy, everything is wonderful way. In a real, this is exhausting, but I'm going to do it anyway way. There's an episode called Daddy Putdown, which Bluey fans know well, where Bandit is tied upside down to a tree by his daughters and covered in flour and just accepts his fate. Not because he's useless, because he's choosing to play. The difference is enormous. The curriculum hidden in plain sight. Bluey is teaching things schools struggle with. Here is something genuinely wild. Bluey has handled topics that most adult dramas won't go near, and it's done it in 7-minute episodes for preschoolers. Infertility, the episode where Chili misses a phone call and we slowly realize it was about a pregnancy that didn't work out. No one says the word, nothing is explained, but it's right there. For parents watching, undeniably, grief, loss, competitive parenting, and the anxiety it causes. Studies found that children watching Bluey are developing coping skills, emotional regulation, and empathy, not through being told what to feel, but through watching characters navigate real emotions in relatable situations. Meanwhile, Peppa Pig has become what most child development experts would describe as a show about entertainment. That is not nothing. Entertainment has value, joy has value, and Peppa is genuinely funny. But its emotional curriculum is thin. The lessons that exist tend to be surface level. Share your toys, be nice to friends. Consequences for bad behavior are usually minimal or absent entirely. Bluey's creator built the show around a specific belief that play is how children learn, and that television should model the kind of play that builds emotionally healthy kids. Every game Bluey and Bingo play, every elaborate pretend scenario Bandit gets dragged into, is designed to show children what it looks like to use imagination as a tool for processing the world. Peppa jumps in muddy puddles. That's delightful. These are not the same thing. The verdict, and why the answer is more complicated than you think. So here's the part where we're supposed to declare a winner. In 2022, Peppa introduced its first same-sex couple, two mummies for Penny Polar Bear, in the most matter-of-fact way possible, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, because to Peppa, it was. And that kind of quiet, progressive storytelling for a show that's been on for 20 years is its own kind of intelligent. Peppa Pig has also served as the inspiration for Bluey. The creator of the Smarter Show openly said he loved Peppa and wanted to build on what it had already proven. Without Peppa normalizing the animal family doing everyday things format for a global audience, Bluey might never have had the same reception. What we actually have here is not a story of one show being bad and one being good. It's a story of what children's television evolved into over 20 years. Peppa figured out how to make children feel seen by showing them a world where adults were messy and fallible and funny. Bluey took that idea and asked, what if the adults were still messy, infallible, and funny, but also genuinely good? The answer turned out to be one of the most beloved shows in television history. And somewhere in Brisbane, a 6-year-old blue dog just beat a 20-year-old pink pig at her own game, without ever once calling anyone fat. So which show is actually smarter? Bluey wins on the research, the emotional curriculum, the parenting models, and the long-term impact. Peppa wins on longevity, cultural survival, and being the show that accidentally proved this format could work. But here's the real question. Which one do the kids in your house prefer? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more wild cartoon deep dives, smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.